Hey, what's going on, guys? Devin here with Backcountry Exposure. I'm not going to sit here and wait for people to start watching because this is going to upload to the channel regardless of what I do. So I'm just going to let people start making their way onto the live stream here and we're going to get going. But the whole purpose of this video is to talk about, or this live stream is to talk about the big three of backpacking. So I did one of these live streams pretty recently at the beginning of the month, and it was kind of this like weird jumble of a lot of different topics discussed and things, and it was my first time trying out a live stream. But this time we're doing a specific discussion on the big three of backpacking. And I'm excited about it because it's something I've spent a lot of time researching and looking into. And as somebody that runs a YouTube channel, reviews gear, and just spends a lot of time looking at different gear options and systems, I wanted to talk about and answer questions that people might have about how to save weight with their backpacking system, specifically regarding the big three items of your backpacking system, being your shelter, your backpack, and your sleeping system. So as people are starting to get on, I want to take a detour from that real quick and just talk about something really big that happened in Utah yesterday. So if you are not local here in Utah, there is a thing called the Antiquities Act that all of us should be familiar with, but President Obama designated a new national monument here in Utah. He actually did two national monuments, but he designated one here in Utah called the Bears Ears National Monument. Now the Bears Ears covers now 1.3 million acres. Yeah, new monument, Tim. It's pretty wild. So the reason that I'm talking about this is there is a lot of controversy surrounding this monument being designated. Utah being a Republican state, a very red state, a very conservative state, there is a lot of controversy around President Obama designating this Bears Ears as a new monument. So there's things about he's overreaching and doing a land grab and things like that that make it controversial. People are concerned about the Native American tribes in that area that use the land for gathering firewood and herbs and medicinal things. That are they going to have access to that? But if you want to know what the monument is like and what kind of terrain and stuff is down there, search Indian Creek trad climbing, where you're going to see a incredibly world famous, very popular climbing destination here in Utah outside of Moab that is now under the national monument. And then south of that there is the Cedar Mesa area, where if you go back through my videos, you will see a video of backpacking in Road Canyon. And that is going to be a video that really shows the important things of what President Obama wanted to protect with designating the monument. So go read a bunch of things about it. It's pretty fascinating, and so that's kind of just some fun news, current events, things that are happening here in Utah. So the other monument, just real quick before we proceed, was designated in Nevada. The name of it, I'm having a blank, but it's just right outside of the Cliven Bundy Ranch, which Cliven Bundy was the guy and his family and whatnot that was able to basically be acquitted of the charges that they were charged with in Oregon when they took over that wildlife refuge. So anyway, let's talk about the big three of backpacking. Now that we've got some people watching, Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope that this stream goes a little bit better than the last stream as far as topics covered and the stream health, meaning that it's buffering better for everybody and it's just a better situation overall. So ask your questions as we're going, because I want to know what type of gear that you guys are interested in, what you might be wanting to know about the big 3 items of backpacking. A lot of this is going to be geared towards saving weight, and we're going to go for about another half hour to 45 minutes. So I have a question that kind of leads into this going right now. Mark is asking, when did you really get into backpacking? So my backpacking career, I guess you could say, started when I was about 11, 12 years old. I'm almost 30 now. So I just started backpacking. Looks like we're having some buffering issues. Is it going slow? You guys having struggles? If you give me 1 second and I'll see if I can fix it. Okay, so I tried to adjust some settings. Guys, I'm really sorry. I honestly don't have the best internet, and so we'll do the best that we can. I really appreciate you being patient about it. So, me getting into backpacking, I was 12 years oldish, and I never really paid attention to what gear I was going to use. I just basically took the gear that I knew that I would need to get into the backcountry. So I'm going to work on this buffering stuff a little bit more here real quick. Thanks for being patient, guys. How we doing? Is it getting better? North Country, I am on Wi-Fi and I don't have the option to get in on the jack, so we'll just go with it as we can. The benefit of this is you are going to be able to watch this after the fact when it uploads to the channel. So if it is just going really bad for you, then just look back tomorrow and you can watch the whole thing. And you can ask questions in the comments of the video when it uploads as well, and I will answer questions and things at that point as well. So I'm really sorry. I'm going to have to figure out my internet situation and just try to make this better if I decide to do more live streams. So, but let's talk about the big 3. And I want to talk about how people start backpacking and at what point does weight start to be something that is paid attention to. So I feel like a lot of people, when they first start backpacking, they don't really pay attention to how much something weighs, which is fine. It's not a big issue because the way that gear is made now and the access to gear, especially lower priced gear, it's getting a lot better. And so you could get into a base weight of 20 to 25 pounds as your initial backpacking setup without really any problems. And you don't have to spend a lot of money. It's when you start to focus on the things to save you a bunch of weight that make it so you're spending a little bit more money and have to focus on very specific things about your gear and your backpacking system to be able to save weight and make it a little more easy on your back, more than anything. But I'm going to ask a question to you guys. What was your first pack, your first tent, and your first sleeping bag? So the big three covers those items: your shelter system, your sleeping system, and your backpack. Sorry, I've got some notes over here that I'm reading as well and looking at. But let me know what those items are. Yeah, thank you for the technical person, North Country, that um, is looking at things to make it a little bit better on your end. Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. Okay, so I'm seeing some comments of the first pack was a Kestrel 58. Awesome. That is actually a really fantastic backpack. Osprey is one of my favorite backpacking brands ever. The North Face Tadpole, that's a cool product as well. And a 32-degree sleeping bag, awesome. The Kelty Coyote, also a really great backpack as well. So my first backpacking backpack was from Mountainsmith and was a great pack, but as I've been focusing on other things about my system, I've made some very specific adjustments to my big three of backpacking. So if you've watched my 11-pound lightweight backpacking gear list, you'll see that I have gone to a Osprey Exos 38, and I'm using a Montbell spiral down 30-degree bag, and then also the Sierra Designs Flashlight 1 tent. And that's been a really good system for me. With those three items, I'm at about 6-7 pounds around there, which I feel is pretty decent for a lightweight setup. It's definitely not an ultralight setup. I would get probably something like a tarp tent that would make it so I could save a little bit more weight. But achieving saving weight in your big three really doesn't have to cost a lot of money. So I'm curious if anybody wants to share how much they think they have spent on their backpacking system. I kind of priced mine out, that 11-pound base weight system, and I'm like $1,600, which is like way too much money to spend on backpacking gear, but I'm a total gearhead and I love gear. The Ohm is an awesome backpack. I have seen, their products are manufactured just a couple hours north of where I live, so really cool brand. But let me get a drink. So let's go ahead and talk about backpacks and really focus on backpacks, and then I want to talk about shelters and then sleep systems. So backpacks. If you are new to backpacking, I would say buy a backpack that you're excited about. Try to find something that's within the 3 to 4 pound range, simply because you probably don't have the budget, or you're not experienced enough with the gear to be able to say that I need all of these specific items for my backpacking system. And if you don't have a full understanding of all the different types of gear that are available out there, then getting something that is within like a 55 to 65 liter range is going to be a good way to start for you before you try to go like super ultralight and not be familiar enough with how your backpacking system is going to work that you might find yourself getting into trouble because you have gone too light or you haven't taken the proper gear with you. So one of the packs that I think is probably, I don't want to say it's the best, but it's one of the best backpacks on the market right now, just from my experience, is the Osprey Atmos 65 AG or the 55 AG. So what's really cool about Osprey, and you're going to hear me talk about them a lot, I honestly feel like they are making some of the best packs on the market right now for your everyday backpacker. I know a lot of people that have the AG or the anti-gravity system, and it is fantastic, unbelievably comfortable, and the price of it to get into the pack is really good. And what I like about Osprey is they haven't made a pack that has too many pockets. It doesn't have a bunch of extra things about it that make it like unusable or have a bunch of extra weight. But that would be, if you are looking to buy a new backpack, that would be my recommendation, the Atmos 65 from Osprey. Other good options, you can look at Gregory, you can look at Kelty. REI brand actually has some good packs, as well as Granite Gear. Granite Gear is a great way to go if you want to get into a lighter weight backpack, spend a little bit more money, but still have that 50 to 65 liter range for that. So I'm having a mind blank on what the Granite Gear pack is. The Crown VC. That is a fantastic pack. If you are wanting to, as your first pack, get into something a little bit more lightweight from the beginning, then the Crown VC is going to be a really awesome pack for you to get. So if you are wanting to then start saving a lot more weight and go into the lightweight / ultralight aspect, then looking at some of the Gossamer gear or the Z packs or even the Exos line from Osprey, which is what I ended up actually purchasing for myself. I did the Exos 38, and the ULA, the Ohm 2.0 is also a fantastic, really lightweight backpack to go as well. So you're going to be able to achieve a better base weight if you are willing to sacrifice a little bit of comfort on your backpack, not having as robust of the hip belt and shoulder pads, shoulder straps. It's just something that you have to be willing to live with, I guess, but you're hopefully going to have a lighter pack on your back with food and water and your base weight and everything, hopefully less than 30 pounds, with a pack that is around the 2 to 3 pound range. But yes, the Blaze 60 is a fantastic pack. So yeah, if you're gonna go with one of these more lightweight packs, then you're really only going to carry 15 to 25 pounds. It looks like North County is agreeing with that. So pay attention to that, but go do some research because you can save a lot of weight, 2 to 3 pounds on your backpack if you're willing to spend the money to get into something. I know that like the Z packs are really expensive. The Gossamer gear aren't that bad. I almost purchased the Gossamer gear Pilgrim 36, but decided against it because I wanted to actually have a frame in my pack. So lots and lots and lots of options out there. Is there anybody that is like looking to get into a more ultralight setup that like what are you guys currently carrying right now? It'd be nice to know kind of what the range is if we've got some ultralight people watching or what. But I've been really happy, just to go back to the Exos. So Mark is asking lightweight packs on a budget. Honestly, the Osprey Exos line is the way to go for a lightweight pack on a budget. I think I paid $150 for my 38 liter, and that was a really good price. Which on Amazon you can find the Osprey packs for sale all the time. So Gino, real quick, ultralight trekking poles. Check out Perea Outdoor Products. They have a carbon fiber trifold pole or the Foxelli carbon fiber poles. Those are a good way to go. Yes, the Talon series. Thank you for reminding me about that. So the Talon series is also a really great option to go from Osprey. So the differences between the Talon series and the Exo series, though, is the Talon backpacks don't have any metal or aluminum frame stays in the pack. It just has a rigid frame sheet along the back. So you have to pay really close attention to how much weight you're putting in that pack. But I have the Talon 44, and I absolutely love that pack. It is really, really nice. So I actually have 2 packs that are in the Talon series. Any other questions about the backpack realm of things? I know I'm going pretty quick and I'm not getting into a lot of detail, but trying to answer questions and help people out on that as well. So, but let's go ahead and move into shelters. North County, you are like the ideal annotator right now. Thanks for answering questions and helping me out. Have I ever used a lumbar pack? No, but one of my YouTube friends, Rev Hiker, if you haven't checked out his channel, do it because he uses a lumbar pack and he has modified it. So you should go check out his videos to see what he's taking. Any thoughts on Z-Packs? Yes, I honestly feel like Z-Packs is way too expensive. The reason that I have not looked at their gear is because I just can't afford it. And to pay like $30 for a little tiny stuff sack like this, it's crazy to me. So I haven't paid a lot of attention to it, but I'm also, when I look at like a lightweight backpack, I want something that has a nice hip belt. And one of the things that I've noticed about ultralight or lightweight packs that are made very simply, have kind of just the tube style, they really lack any kind of robust, good hip belt. And you could suggest something to me if I'm getting it wrong, but that's the reason I went with the Osprey, because it's got a suspension system that will carry well on my hips because I hate having the weight on my shoulders. That's just my opinion. So, all right, so let's talk about shelters. This is a pretty broad topic because there are kind of 3 main types of shelters that people are going to take out onto the trail with them. That being a traditional tent, a tarp, and then a hammock system. So I'm curious to know which of those 3 you guys are using, if you're using a hammock, or if you're using a tarp, or if you're using a tent. For me, it depends on what type of trip I'm doing. I'm headed out tomorrow to actually do an overnight trip, and I'm testing out a new hammock system from a brand called Bear Butt. And we'll see how it goes. It's kind of going to be a gear testathon trip, but let's talk about tents. Now, when I first started backpacking, I carried whatever two-person tent I thought was awesome. And most budget-friendly two-person tents are going to be 5 to 6 pounds. And that's fine if you are just trying to get into backpacking and you're not sure what to buy. A lot of what I see out on the trail from people is Alps mountaineering tents and Kelty tents, which are both really great brands, but they don't necessarily focus on ways to save a lot of weight for people. So that leads me into how you can get into a lighter weight tent without spending a lot of money, because there are some really good options out there. The Sierra Designs tents have become some of my favorite designs lately. I have the Sierra Designs Flashlight 1. Now, they don't have the lowest prices, to be totally honest. But Sierra Designs has some fantastic tents at decent prices that are going to get you around the 3 to 4 pound range. Or if you are willing to spend the extra money to get into their FL series, their Featherlight series, you can save 6 to 12 ounces on each tent. You're going to pay about $100 more per tent to be able to get into that FL series, but if you want to go the traditional route and use a tent, the stake to the ground, rainfly, all of that stuff, then it's a good way to go. So there's a comment here that says, "I want the newest Sierra Designs tent. Have you seen it?" I think it's the Divine Light, which is actually a tent that I'm really excited to see, because in a couple weeks is the Outdoor Retailer Trade Show. Yes, the Flashlight 1 is such a good price on Amazon right now. And I love that tent. I have a review on my channel. If you're considering looking at that tent, go check out that video, because it's fantastic. I absolutely love that tent. But the Divine Light is basically, since we're talking about the Flashlight, a hybrid of the Flashlight and the Tensegrity tent. So go check it out. It's really cool. So I'm not super excited about the weight of it, but it still is a tent that I am definitely interested in looking at. So another tent, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel. You've seen a lot of videos from these guys. I love the Paria Outdoor Products Bryce two-person tent. I'm not being paid to say that. I seriously love that tent. They've made it out of a really high-quality polyester material as opposed to a sil nylon. And you're getting a two-person tent that is a single door with one vestibule for just under 4 pounds. It's about 3 pounds, 12 ounces with the included footprint, which you could leave behind because the floor of that tent is a 70D. But that thing, I think, is $159 for a really high quality sub 4 pound tent, even with the stakes and the footprint. So check that out, because it's an impressive tent. I also have a review of that on the channel if you want to check that out if you haven't already. But where you're going to find the most weight savings in your tent is going to be steering away from a freestanding tent and going to a non-freestanding tent. The Flashlight 1 tent is a non-freestanding tent. The benefit of that is you are sacrificing a little bit of like headroom and overall space within the tent, but you're saving a lot of weight on the poles that are needed to have the tent stand up. So if you can find a tent like a tarp tent or a Six Moon Designs, or there's a lot of different options out there. Gosh, I'm having a mind blank, but like any like a tarp tent or the Six Moon designs, they are tents that use trekking poles to hold up the tent as opposed to traditional like aluminum poles, and that saves you a ton of weight. You could get into the sub 3 pound, 2.5 pound range with a tarp tent, like a one-person tarp tent, and have a really nice, good backpacking experience. You're just going to pay a little bit more money for it. Thoughts on HMG tents? I'm honestly not familiar. You'll have to give me, does HMG stand for something? Anyway, so let's talk about tarps, since that is another way to hyperlight mountain gear. No, I don't have a lot of experience with it, so I can't really comment on it. So tarps. This is a way to not spend a ton of money, save a lot of weight and space, especially if you carry trekking poles, to get into the backcountry and enjoy yourself in kind of a minimalist type scenario. So there are two different types of tarps that you can buy. You can get a square tarp, a flat tarp, which is going to be a rectangular shape, and I'm having a mind blank. Sorry, I read a comment and it stopped my train of thought. Oh, okay, flat tarps. So a flat tarp is going to be that rectangular shape. The hard thing about a flat tarp is it's harder to get a really tight pitch with it. So that's where cat cut tarps or catenary cut tarps come into play, because they have like specific cuts in the material that when you stake it out allow it to get really tight. So the benefit to that is you're going to save a little bit of weight, and you're going to get a stronger storm system out of a cat cut tarp than you would a flat tarp, unless you are really good at different types of setups of a flat tarp. But tarps are a really good way to go if you carry trekking poles, because you're not carrying any like aluminum poles in addition to your trekking poles. It's a very minimalist way to go because you don't have a rain fly plus the body of the tent, and you are a little more exposed to the elements, because if bugs are an issue for you, then you're going to want to have some kind of bug net, which going with like a tarp tent in that case, if you want to go the tarp route, then going with a very minimalist style tarp is going to be the way to go. But I like using a tarp. I went on a trip to the I'm thinking the brand, but the Paria River Canyon here in Utah, southern Utah, and I spent 6 nights under a tarp with like 5 other people. We had like a 10 by 12 tarp. It was huge, and loved that thing. Bugs weren't an issue, so didn't have to worry about that aspect of going light. But we were able to save a ton of weight in our system because we were using a tarp. So if you have questions about tarps, put them down in the comments or whatever. But let's move on to hammocks, because I kind of have I have mixed feelings about hammocks, and it's probably because my experience with hammocks has honestly not been super exciting. Part of that is probably because I have not spent a lot of money on my hammock setup. I mentioned earlier that this weekend or tomorrow I'm leaving to go on an overnight trip, and I am testing out a new hammock setup from Bear Butt, which is a brand here local in the area. But when I've priced out kind of my ideal hammock setup, it's like $700. which is a crazy amount of money to spend on the gear to sleep off the ground. And I don't mind sleeping on the ground, but what I have kind of created as my ideal hammock setup, and I'm curious to know if any of you guys are like diehard hammock people, because I'm not there yet. I'm just not. But my ideal hammock setup would be the Dream Hammock Raven, which is $140. It's 21 ounces. I would probably pair it with the UGQ hanger tarp, which is 14 ounces. It's 12 feet in length, and that's $120. And then for my underquilt, I would do the War Bonnet Wookie, which is going to be a full body length. I like to sleep a little bit warmer, and I'm willing to carry the extra 3 to 6 ounces to have that extra warmth. That thing is $250 just for the underquilt, and it's at 20 ounces, so 850 fill. I know a lot of people really like that product, but I have a hard time. Like, I have to buy an underquilt and a top quilt to be comfortable in the hammock. So I'm spending like almost $450 just to be able to sleep warm. Which, moving on to the top quilt, I would get the Sierra Designs Backcountry quilt, which is a 700 fill, 30 degree at $220. And then the total for all of that is $730 in 5 pounds. So yes, you're getting your whole shelter setup and your sleep system for 5 pounds, which is actually a really decent amount of weight. So if you take into consideration that you're saving weight, well, if you have a 3 to 4 pound tent and then you have a 2 pound sleeping bag and then you have about a pound and a half sleeping pad, you're probably going to save yourself about 2 pounds by going with that hammock setup that I just mentioned. But my goodness, $730 to get into that. So if hammocks are what you legitimately want to use, then it's a good way to save weight, to be comfortable. I just don't think, for me, that it's always worth the effort. And it just seems like a system that could fail pretty easy. So I'm not totally sold on the hammock situation. Even though I'm going out on a winter trip tomorrow, there's like 2 feet of snow where I'm going. It's going to be cold, and I don't have an underquilt. I'm using a pad. But yeah, hammocks could be a good way to save weight, but they're not always the most ideal shelter system, unless it is a summer setup and you know that you can save a ton of weight, because that setup that I just mentioned, it does include a bug net, but if you get a hammock that doesn't have a bug net, you're just adding one more thing. That's like a lot of different things just to have hammocks going on. So I'm sorry that I'm not a diehard hammock guy. I'm not really selling it as a very good option, but it is what it is. So, you guys have any other questions about shelters and how you could save weight on shelters and what kind of options are available? Ask them right now, because I want to move on to sleep systems while I take a drink. So the question is, what are your thoughts on pyramid tents, just the shell for winter when you're done with hammocks? I like the pyramid tents if you are going to be using it as a group. If you've got 2 to 3 people and you're all going to use the pyramid tent, then I think it's a really great way to go. But they can be heavy, and because they're of the pyramid shape, you don't have the the headroom of the tent isn't that great, but they're a great option for the winter, especially if you can dig down into the snow and create a nice like pocket of warm air. Then I think they're a good way to go. High and dry in the hammock. That's a good way to go. I like it. So I only want to go for maybe another 15 minutes, and I want to make sure that I cover sleep systems as the third item of the big three. So let's talk about sleeping bags. Sleeping bags, I feel like it doesn't matter what you buy. I really feel like it doesn't matter what you buy because products have become so advanced, and the materials and fill that people are using in their products, it depends how much money you are willing to spend and if you have a love affair with a certain brand. So I have, let's see, 3 sleeping bags right now. I have a Montbell Spiral Down 30 degree. I have a Nemo Nocturne 30, which is the 30 degree. And then I have the Paria Outdoor Products Thermo Down 15 degree. All very different bags, and they have their pluses and minuses, or pros and cons. So before I get into that though, the easiest way to save weight in your sleep system is to ditch synthetic and get down. And people, the biggest like argument that I hear from people is, well, down's too expensive, and if you get it wet, then you're screwed. Well, I've been backpacking for 12 years, since I was 12, longer than 12 years. And I've had a down sleeping bag and synthetic sleeping bags that entire time. And I have never once had my down sleeping bag get wet. I've been in crazy storms. I've had plenty of opportunities and situations where my pack got soaking wet. But because I use a pack liner, I am able to steer away from ever having a problem with my down bag getting wet. So I say invest in down because it's going to save you space in your backpack, and it's going to save you a ton of weight, especially if you can go ahead and pay the money for at least an 800 fill bag. It's the way to go. It really is. So with that said, I also feel like for me, in the area that I'm in, which I could be hiking and backpacking anywhere from 10,000 feet in the Uinta mountain range, which is kind of an alpine setting like the Sierras, or I could be down in the desert where it's going to be wicked hot during the day and then drop down into really low temperatures at night. But until I got my hands on the Paria Outdoor Products bag, which is a 15 degree bag, I have never had anything less than that. I've never had a 0 degree. 30 degrees has always been enough weight or enough temperature rating for me to be comfortable in the backcountry. I'm a 3-season backpacker. Most of the time I do a few winter trips here and there, but you can save a lot of weight on your sleeping bag if you go with the 30 degree bag. If you're going to be in situations where it's honestly going to get less than 30 degrees, like 30 degrees is going to be the comfort level. Usually when a company says this is such and such model and it's a 30 degree. 30 degree is going to be your comfort rating. If you layer up on your clothing and get into your bag and you do your jumping jacks before you jump into your bag so that the bag is not insulating cold, but it's insulating your body heat, then you're going to be just fine. So North Country, I spent 2 winters in New England, in Vermont and Maine, and I am not a fan of the winters out east either. They are awful. So do you really need less than 30 degrees? Probably not. If you're a three season backpacker, probably not. Just layer up, take an extra shirt, and you'll save money that way. 30-degree bags don't cost as much money. And if you get an 800 fill bag, you're going to be sub 2 pounds on your sleeping bag, which is a really great way to go. And that leads me to the question of, do I get a quilt or do I get a traditional bag with a zipper, like a mummy bag? Even though there's a lot of variations of mummy bags out there, you don't have to get the traditional mummy bag. So a lot of people, like Nemo, for example, are creating shapes of their bags that make sleeping in them and using them a lot more comfortable. So they have their spoon shape, which allows you to cross your knees or cross your legs and actually sit up in the bag, and it's really, really comfortable. I love my Nemo bag. It's awesome. But with that said, the Perea Outdoor Products, the Thermodown, the 15-degree bag, that thing is awesome. It is a traditional style bag, and so it's got like the tapered look to it. It doesn't have any stretch. It's a 650 fill down. It's only $140. So really, really good price for a bag that is going to be really warm and really great for you to take in the backcountry. If you want to spend a little bit more money, I have the Montbell Spiral Down, which those bags are amazing. They use like a spiral elastic feature through it that allows it to stay close to your body, but if you're moving in it, it'll stretch and be really comfortable. I love that bag. Other bags that you can look at that are going to save you weight are the Sierra Designs or Kelty, or there's a brand called Outdoor Vitals. That's a really great way to get into a lightweight down bag. Outdoor Vitals, I think they're like still under that $160, $150 range for an 800 fill bag, so check those out. But the Sierra Designs, I have been really intrigued with their sleeping bags because they came out with the bed style, which doesn't have any zippers, and they're pretty lightweight, and I think it's just a really cool system that allows for a little bit more versatility and comfort in your sleeping bag, because if you haven't seen them, they have like a kind of oval shaped cutout, and then it's like nice and wide up at the shoulders, and then it has a quilt, like a comforter that's sewn in, and you can just like pull it up over top of you, or you can throw it down if it's hot, or you can like really tuck it in, and you can fold the top of the bag over top of you. I don't have one yet, and I want to get one, but that's also a great bag that I think is really cool from what I've seen. So let's talk about quilts. Quilts are, I don't understand why quilts cost so much money. It's probably because they're more difficult to sew and put together. But okay, so here's a question before I move on too far. Anything different for side sleepers compared to back sleepers? I would seriously check out the spoon-shaped bags from Nemo, and the Backcountry bed from Sierra Designs. Those are going to be amazing options because I'm a side sleeper as well, and I sleep really well on my side in the Nemo bag. So that's from personal experience of dozens and dozens of nights in that bag. It's been fantastic. So, but moving on to quilts. So quilts are a really, really awesome way to get into a lightweight setup. And the benefit of the quilt is you're going to have less material, and you're relying on either your underquilt and your hammock or your sleeping pad to give you the R value so that your back and your bottom don't get cold from sleeping on the ground or hanging in the air. So the quilt is going to have typically a foot baffle that you stick your feet into, and then it's basically just a big comforter that you're going to wrap around you. They don't, except for the Sierra Designs Backcountry quilt, they don't have any kind of like head cover feature like you would see with the mumming bag. But yeah, so somebody's mentioning Big Agnes. Big Agnes is also a really, really awesome brand for down sleeping bags, just sleeping bags in general. So check those out for sure. But quilts they're great. If you're willing to spend the money on a quilt, they're a little bit harder to find because a lot of the cottage companies are making them, and a lot of times you have to like custom order them. So you're going to spend a little bit more money that way, but you're getting a nice high quality product, and you could save yourself like 6 to 10 ounces on a quilt because you could get really high fill powers in them. I've seen quilts that have up to 950 fill power for the down, so that's like super light, but you still have like a 30-degree quilt. It's a really, really great option. So let's move on to sleeping pads as kind of the last thing about sleep systems, and then we're going to wrap this up. So there are a lot of different sleeping pads for you to purchase. My absolute favorite sleeping pad that I've ever owned is the Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite. That thing is 12 ounces. It's not as loud as people complain about it being, and I absolutely love it. It's amazing. Really tiny. It's about the size of it's smaller than a Nalgene bottle, and I sleep really comfortable on it. You can get an insulated version of it, and it's a really, really high R value. It's like almost 6 for the R value, which the R value on the X-Lite is already at 3, which really cool. For a 12-ounce pad that has an R value that high, it's impressive because I've looked at a lot of other pads like the Big Agnes pads, the Nemo pads, or the Sea to Summit pads. Sea to Summit came out with their sleeping pads a little while ago, like 2 years ago, and they're awesome, but they're expensive. So a really great option if you want to get into an air chamber style pad, which I think is one of the easiest ways to save weight and space in your pack, is to go with an air chamber pad. But the Climate Static V, that thing is right at a pound, 16 ounces. Super, super cool. It doesn't have a really high R value, but you're going to be really comfortable in a 3-season setting, especially if you have a 30-degree bag. And I think you can get them on Amazon for like $60. So a really, really decent price. It's impressive. They have about a 2-inch loft on them, so they're going to be nice and high off the ground. Way better than a self-inflating pad, which leads me into, is the self-inflating pad worth it? With the R value that you get from a lot of these, especially in a 3-season setting, going with a self-inflating pad just doesn't make sense to me. I would rather spend way less money on a closed-cell foam pad like the Thermarest Z-Lite, which, although is going to be like really bulky and big, it's not something that I would really ever carry with me, but really cool option if you want to spend a little bit less money, but it's going to put you right against the ground, and I don't think they're as comfortable. But if you're using that in a hammock setup, then it's a good way to go as well to give you a little bit more barrier from the cold in your hammock. So I say that an air chamber pad is the way to go. Probably, yeah, the Climate Static V, if you don't have very much money to spend, then yeah, it's like $60. And they also have an insulated version that I think puts it up to 21 ounces. Still not a ton of weight for a sleeping pad, but they're a really cool design, and I think they've done a really good job. So So there's the big three, guys. We've covered shelters and sleeping systems and sleeping bags and backpacks. So if you're new to backpacking or you've been doing it for a while and you're trying to save weight, hopefully I've given you options, and people here in the comments watching and sharing thoughts have been able to give feedback on things that you can look at as well to get some weight savings. But saving weight on your backpacking system really is the way to go. There's a lot of benefits to getting below 30 pounds on your total weight of your pack. If you can get into the 20 to 25 pound range, you're even better. So focus on it. Be willing to spend a little bit of money to make it happen, but focus on these three items and weigh what you have right now and say, okay, this weighs my big three, my pack, my sleeping bag, my sleeping pad, and my shelter system weigh 12 pounds or 10 pounds or 15 pounds or whatever it is. Then start looking at ways to save some weight. Maybe start with your shelter and decide what you can do with that. And then, or look at your pack and decide how you can save some weight on your pack. Just lots of different options. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop it right there, guys. If you have further questions, please just drop them down in the comments. This is going to post live on the channel once it gets done processing here, probably in an hour or so. If you want to rewatch and ask more questions, I'm very happy to answer things. Sometimes it's hard while I'm right in the moment to do it, to remember things off the top of my head, but that'll give me time to research things and look at it and make suggestions. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time. There's an hour out of your night to listen to me ramble on about a bunch of gear. I really appreciate it. So thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'm going to put that plug there. And hope you guys have an awesome weekend and a really great New Year. That's what's coming up. Thanks, guys.